It's Friday night. That means it's time for our continuing coverage of President Trump's DC takeover. I'm producer Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. We are streaming live right now on Fox Local and on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. If you haven't joined us before, each night we recap what is happening on this federal surge, what has happened over the past 24 hours. We also highlight some of our Fox 5 DC coverage of what has been happening. And I got to admit, it's going to be a shorter show tonight because it has been a quiet end to what has been a very busy week. So, like I said, this show is going to be a little shorter than normal. What we'll do is we'll look back at some of the big moments from this past week. We'll also look ahead to what we know is happening next week and in the days ahead. First, though, we want to do what we always do, and that is get to the latest numbers. So there they are. The latest post on X from Attorney General Pam Bondi. Another 86 arrests made, including a suspected gang member and 5 illegal firearms seized. Thank you to the President of the United States and incredible DC and federal law enforcement partners. Our mission to make DC safe again is working and remains ongoing. We also heard from the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. All federal partners are now at almost 1,400 arrests under the president's initiative to clean up Washington, D.C. The latest from the FBI, August 28th to the 29th, 38 arrests involving FBI personnel, 3 gun recoveries, 8 drug seizures, 86 individuals arrested by federal partners, total lives being saved every single day. The president has been quiet over the last couple days, except for one post on Truth Social. Stand by. There it is. This was his post last night at 11 p.m. Carjacking in D.C. is down 87%. All other categories of crime are likewise down massively. Since I got involved, D.C. will soon be crime-free zone in only 14 days. He says that's even faster, far faster than scheduled. Thank you for your attention to this matter, he said. Now, we mentioned that it was a busy week. It began on Monday with President Trump in the White House speaking out about that crime crackdown, his executive order on cashless bail in D.C. What else did he talk about? The progress the federal surge has had across the nation's capital. Mayor Muriel Bowser also spoke out on Monday during a back-to-school event. I'll take you to some video of how that all went down. There's the president signing that executive order on Monday. On Tuesday, the president had a cabinet meeting. It was a marathon cabinet meeting. Lasted over 3 hours. He talked more about the crime crackdown with the task force and other members of his cabinet. Then on Wednesday, it was Mayor Muriel Bowser's turn. That's when she held that major situational update where she talked more about the drop in crime since the federal surge began. She gave credit to the Trump administration for what they had accomplished. She also talked about her meeting with the president and the attorney general. She got herself in a little bit of hot water with her critics for saying, though, that she appreciated the help from the federal government. So that took us to Thursday.
Let me just be clear, Darcy, and I spoke for a long time, and I'm starting to think some of what I said was lost in my remarks.
I'm going to bring down the audio there. So then on Thursday, she spent some time at a school ribbon cutting ceremony. She was clarifying the remarks she made on Wednesday during that situational. She responded to council members and constituents that said she needed to do more to stand up for the city and home rule. We also heard from White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt yesterday, who praised the federal surge and promised the president would be willing to help any other cities who wanted federal assistance. She also talked about the situation in Chicago. The president has talked about possibly sending the National Guard there as well. So that's what happened over the course of the past week. Now let's talk about what will probably happen next week. We'll likely hear more from the president. We'll likely hear more from the mayor next week as we enter what will be the 4th week of the federal surge, will also inch closer to that 30-day expiration date. Meanwhile, Monday, some community leaders will gather at D.C. Superior Court to declare a state of emergency in D.C. and protest the federal surge. That is supposed to happen around noon. Then on Tuesday, some Maryland lawmakers will hold a virtual event protesting the president's takeover of D.C. and warning his, quote, authoritarian agenda could spread nationwide. Meanwhile, Congress has until September 10th to decide whether to extend the 30-day takeover. And like we told you last night, one Republican from Arizona already working on legislation to extend it for 180 days, which would be 6 months. Later in September, the mayor, DC's attorney general, and council chairman are all due on Capitol Hill to testify on crime and policing. That'll be in front of the House Oversight Committee, which is also investigating accusations that the DC Police Department manipulated crime data. So a little earlier this afternoon on the DMV zone, Fox 5's Marina Morocco actually got a chance to talk to WTOP Capitol Hill reporter Mitchell Miller all about what has happened and what we expect next. Take a listen.
30 days, that's what the law says. What happens next? And I think already we're coming to the conclusion of those 30 days, and this is what is starting to boil in.
Right. I mean, the date that it's really set for is September 10th. Congress has to act on that because the Home Rule Act of 1973 says that Congress has to act within 30 days. However, as you just noted, a lot of Republican lawmakers have all kinds of bills that basically would extend it, in Andy Biggs' case, 180 days. There's also a couple of other proposals that would extend it indefinitely, basically giving the president as long as he feels he needs to extend the crime emergency. So we'll have to see how those come up when Congress gets back on Tuesday. They have a lot of other things on their plate, but clearly DC crime is one of the things they want to take up first.
Yeah, they've been in recess for the summer. They're coming back after Labor Day. Any sense from the speaker which bill he's going to put up to vote first or what comes up?
Well, I think they're going to sort them out for the first few days and try to get a sense from what he actually wants. The president, as you know, has indicated that he does not think 30 days is long enough. Yeah. So he's clearly going to get behind one of these pieces of legislation. Then the question becomes, can it get through not only the House, which it will likely do, but the Senate, where they could be filibustered?
That was going to be my next question, because we've seen it happen before recess. There's not the appetite right now to really move these things, especially from the Democratic side, but especially because we're coming up on midterms. And the thought is, if we can stall, then we likely can get or potentially regain the majority there. To your point, in the House, it seems as though it will have no issue. It's the Senate where are things going to have to work, and who can they pull from? Because there are some senators that are potentially looking at some hot contested races.
Right. I mean, the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has said he will fight tooth and nail to keep this extension from happening. However, as you know, politically, this is a very strong issue for Republicans, and Democrats are going to need at least 7 of them to oppose this. And many of the Democrats are really kind of hesitant to get on the record saying essentially that they would oppose an effort to bring down crime. We've seen the White House say that they brought down violent crime by 30% during this crime emergency. Tough issue for Democrats. Right,
because the narrative has been, well, are you pro-crime then, right? And that's kind of been what has been asked of those leaders in Chicago, who are saying, we don't need any National Guard, we don't need any help. And the president saying that's what he's eyeing next. Obviously, we've seen the back and forth there with Governor Pritzker of Illinois, a Democrat, and again, no appetite there to be agreeable to the president, as maybe some have seen from Mayor Bowser.
Right. Mayor Bowser has been treading political water here, obviously, because of D.C.'s unique situation that she can't activate the Guard. Obviously, Governor Pritzker can, as every other governor can across the state. There's also another part of this that is going to be coming up next week, and that is GOP lawmakers have bills that will take on a lot of issues related to crime in D.C., reforming juvenile crime and the system there, taking up cashless bail. So Republicans are really loaded good for bear for next week and really focusing on crime in D.C. Also, the mayor will be scheduled to testify later in September, along with D.C. Council Chair Phil Mendelson, to give an update essentially on what crime efforts are being underway at that point.
Yeah, and we've also seen from Representative Comer that letter looking to subpoena and get that testimony from those commanders from the D.C. department, 7 of them in total, to see if in fact they substantiate this alleged whistleblowers' allegations that crime was some degree, you call it massaged or reworked or whatever the case may be, to look as though there was less crime. So clearly the appetite is there from lawmakers, especially on the Republican side. Is the council going to do anything when they come back?
Well, you know, the council is trying to show that the crime has been going down, as you know, since the start of the year. So we'll have to see how much pushback they really do on their own. We've seen D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, as you indicated, wants to really terminate the possibility of this extension of the crime emergency. However, Democrats just don't have the vote. So it'll be interesting to see how the D.C. council reacts.
A lot of moving parts here, as we know, in a very trying time for the district, especially those who support statehood. We'll wait and see. Mitchell, thanks for the update. And of course, next week will be very telling the direction this all follows.
You bet.
All right, let's stay in the district now, because we also learned about President Trump signing another executive order that actually mandates all federal buildings have a classical architecture style. So this is just another example of how the president is putting his stamp on the nation's capital. We also learned earlier this week about plans from the federal government to take over Union Station. So according to this executive order, federal buildings should be constructed in a way that, quote, uplifts and beautifies public spaces. The order states Trump must be notified of any construction that uses other styles. Now, this comes, of course, after the same week we saw massive portraits of the president that have been draped on federal buildings and public offices. Critics called it straight out of a dictator's handbook, comparing it to moves by leaders like Joseph Stalin and Kim Jong-un, who have used government buildings to project control and reinforce their image. Now, earlier today, Fox 5's Bob Barnard talked to people out and about in D.C. about everything that's happening in the nation's capital. Take a listen.
Some of the things he did as far as bringing in the National Guards and stuff, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't.
Oh, we love it. It's so much better. Just feel a lot more safer, and just love the presence and you know what exactly President Trump's doing.
So that was reaction from some people out in D.C. about what is happening here in the nation's capital, including the National Guard stationed across the city as well, and the federal surge that we have seen over the last 3 weeks or so. I told you at the top of the hour that it was going to be a shorter show tonight because we did not hear from the president today. We did not hear from the mayor today. She spoke out about her 202 Creates Festival that's happening this weekend, but she did not speak about the federal surge at all. We heard from them earlier this week. So a little slower end to the work week, especially heading into this holiday weekend. Coming up tonight at 10 here on Fox Local, we will have more on the federal takeover. Chad Ricardo is also going to have all of your Friday night high school football action, because that is back as well. We're off on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday with another recap. We're going to take you now to Live Now in Progress on what is host Andrew Kraft's last night, so we wish him luck in the future. I'm producer Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great holiday weekend.
Here. That's the, I guess, for-cause rationale the president is using here. We'll see if it stands up in court, I guess, right?
Absolutely. And you know what, if she has the chance to explain herself, you know, I'm sure she's working that out with her attorney and seeing, you know, everybody, as they say, everybody gets their day in court. And even if, you know, she is found guilty, she'd be found guilty, you know, through the process, through the judicial process, which, of course, while it's not perfect, is the best darn thing we've got.
Thomas, just lastly, I mean, you know, we're not lawyers, so we shouldn't get into the weeds of the case here, but Why should people watching care about who's on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, whether or not the president fires one of them? Why should they care? What does it matter to them?
That's a great question, Andrew. And
I mean, we're having a whole discussion about it.
Any reason
minutes.
that you've looked at your dollar, you've looked at the value of your dollar shrink over the past 5 years. Think about what your paycheck was able to buy 5, 10 years ago, and think of how much less it can